What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Street Parking Podcast. This is another episode with one of our amazing members who is here to film the vault workouts with us. And today we've got just an awesome character, Mike Wilcox, who is a truck driver.
Transitioning.
Will be again. Maybe. We'll talk to him about that. And has just such a unique insight on how to use street parking in a lifestyle that's on the road all the time. So I'm super excited to talk to him about that and get to know him a little bit better. He'll be doing the vault workout this week when the podcast comes out. So make sure to check that out as well. So, all right, let's chat about this. So I already kind of alluded to, I don't want to get into the story of what happened to your truck and all of that yet. We'll build up to that because I have a little, way that we're going to flow through this. But how long were you driving truck for before you stopped?
I got my CDL in 2019.
Okay.
I was a company driver doing flatbed for the largest trucking company, flatbed company in the States. I did that for exactly 1 year, and I went into it with the idea of owning my own business and transitioning into an owner-operator. So I did that for a year, and then 2020, I leased on with a guy as an owner-operator. So I owned my truck, I dispatched myself, but I worked under his authority.
Is it just like Uber
And
for
then,
stuff?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. So the trucking industry is such a highly regulated industry. So there's lots of laws and rules, and each state has their own laws.
Where do you live?
Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that for a little while until I figured that out, and then I went under my own operating authority, and I did that up until recently. My truck, yeah, which we're going to get to.
We'll get to. So you joined street parking in 2019. Was that before or after you started driving?
Great question. It was right when I started. So
because you were a member at a CrossFit gym before that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was in a highly active job before that.
Oh, okay. What did you do before?
I was a commercial diver. So
like a diver, like under the water.
Yeah, underwater diver. I went to school for that. So, what
does a commercial diver do when you're down there?
It's construction underwater.
Oh, wow.
So if you think of bridges, they all have to be worked on. So it takes divers to build things underwater, repair things, inspect things. The company I worked for did a lot of work with power companies, so nuclear diving.
Wow.
Dams, things like that.
And that wasn't in Tennessee.
It was.
Was it?
So it was inland diving. So I wasn't out in the ocean. I was in rivers, streams, lakes.
Wow.
So, and I loved it. It was fun.
Yeah.
But man, it just didn't pay what I thought it would.
I feel like that's a job that should pay a lot.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of
it didn't. And
physical activity and risk involved in everything. That's crazy.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But when I got into trucking, and I'm very much an introvert, and I'm very much, I like me time. So working with a group of construction guys, I didn't fit that persona.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, trucking, I'm on my own, but I can still have a business, but it's not brick and mortar, it's not retail.
Right.
So that was kind of my intent going into trucking. But I knew, I'm like, all right, I don't want to be a typical trucker that's, fat and lazy and just never gets up and moves. And so the CrossFit owners I was part of their gym, and they closed it down a while back, or before that. But I had still seen them on social media posting workouts in their garage gym all the time. And so when I got into the trucking, I started in July. Yeah, I think July 2019, and then I joined the end of August, I think.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Dusty Cowden. Him and Michelle are still members. Freaking awesome people.
They were the people that owned your gym,
yes.
The gym that you went to before. Okay.
Yeah. And so I reached out and I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing? You're posting all these workouts. What is that? So they told me about street parking.
Wow.
So then I joined and I figured out I can do this anywhere. But I still lacked the consistency.
Right.
But it gave me a platform to at least know what I should be doing.
So when you started doing your own business with the truck, were you driving long distances? How far were you going now? Was it like all across the country? Was it mostly still in that like Tennessee area?
Yeah, I did OTR, so over the road trucking.
Okay.
So I followed the best paying freight. So I'd go across the country. I went into Canada some.
Wow.
So it's very long days.
You came here before?
Yeah, I did.
Well, that wasn't that long ago.
No, that was because I had the red truck and I had my dog. So that was in 2022. Why did I come to the West Coast? Because I live in Tennessee, and I typically stay on the East Coast or Midwest. I can't remember why I was out here. I know it was a load
I remember meeting you.
Paid really well, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to Washington. And then I found a load. No, I went to Utah and then had a load coming to Washington, and from Washington it's easier to get back to the eastern side of the U.S. So and then I ended up in Vancouver. I'm like, oh my God, I got to stop.
Yeah.
So, and that was awesome. Just the staff is amazing. So it was more of a pilgrimage for me to come to SPHQ.
So, okay, so you, in between when the owners, Dusty and Michelle, when they closed the gym and when you started driving the truck, were you doing anything during that period, or did you just kind of let yourself get a little bit lazy?
I didn't have any structured workouts at all. So it was more of that, and I've been like this for way too long. I mean, most of my life, I'd get super intense. I'm like, okay, I've got to hit these goals, and I'm going to get fit, and I'm going to do this and that. And it would last for a week or two, and then something would change. So when I was at their box, which was 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, I was in the best shape of my life. I had the most confidence. I did like my first pull-up of my life was when I was there doing barbell work. But my eating was still crap, so I hadn't figured out nutrition. But I feel that I was still the healthiest then. But I still didn't have the right mentality. And that's one thing I appreciate about street parking so much is the message that you preach over and over. Because then I was thinking, oh, I have to, the leaderboard. And I remember one specific workout. It was with Michelle. She was coaching. And she had done it was one of the girl WODs. And she had done it right before me. And I'm like, okay, I've got to at least compete with her. And she was telling me, hey, you need to go lower weight. I'm like, no, I got this. And I missed the entire purpose of that workout because I was so worried about RXing.
Yes.
And so fast forward years later, and you're talking about just the purpose of the workout, not worrying about if you're, comparing yourself to others.
Right. Just make sure you choose the appropriate movement and weight and all of that to make sure that you're fitting the time goal.
Exactly.
Is what we always talk about here.
But it took me, 8 years to figure that out.
I mean, it still takes people that have been members for a very long time.
So
it took us a while too.
So I'm sorry, Michelle. I really sucked as a member at the gym there. But That's
great. That's great. Okay, so you get the truck. What equipment? And you get the truck. A month later, you join street parking. Right away, because this might have changed as you got further into it. But right away, what equipment did you take with you in the truck to get your fitness?
So at first, I had a bike. I had like a foldable bike, and that's what I would ride it sometimes. Still not
like an
consistent.
Actual bike that you ride on the road. Okay.
Yeah, and it fit on the top bunk.
For some reason, I was picturing like an assault bike in the back of your truck. I was like, oh my gosh.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, and so it fit on the top rack. So it was a little bike, 20-inch wheels that folds in half, and the handlebars fold down. And then I ended up with some dumbbells. And I'll be honest, I never used the dumbbells.
Okay.
Like, they just sat in my truck. So I had the membership, and I would do it sometimes when I was home,
I see. It took you a while to start actually doing it on the road.
Yeah, it was not, especially when I was a company driver. It's always been very long days, but I didn't have as much control of my time.
Okay.
So I had to.
They really track your where you're at. And
a lot more
that.
deadlines to meet and be at this shipper at a certain time, and I still did that when I owned the company, but I had more control over my time. So
right.
I think that first year, it took me like a year to hit that 75 workouts. I was an owner operator when I got the 75 workouts.
This is such a good conversation because I feel like we see that, I don't want to say a lot, but enough in the Facebook group of people who are like, they'll post something, and this is the first time I've ever posted. I'm actually really embarrassed to say this. I've been a member for 2 years, and I'm like just now almost about to hit my 75 workouts. And of course, everybody's so nice in the comments, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing! You did it."
I can relate to that.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool that you can relate to that, because there might be some of those people listening to this who feel like, I should just cancel my membership. Like I'm only like. This is just, fitness isn't for me. Working out is not for me. I'm never going to find it. So first of all, I want to know why you just didn't cancel it if you weren't using it very often. What was it that you were like, no, I think eventually I'm going to get there?
Well, for one, you don't charge enough. So,
that was kind of part of it, was to make sure that, even if people were going through a hard time, they could keep their membership.
Yeah. And I'm prior military, so I had the military discount.
Okay.
And I think the second year of my membership, you offered a discount for a paid in full membership, I think.
For a year, yeah.
And so I did that. So then I didn't even think about it because,
okay, so it was already there.
But I've always wanted to be athletic. Not really, I've never, wanted to be an athlete, but.
Yeah, you said that in your email to me, you said that you played sports, or you never played sports, but you were a mental poser?
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, absolutely. So, like I always wanted to fit into that fit crowd, the athletic crowd, who'd go to competitions and just crush it. But it was just a mental idea. I never put anything into practice to get to that level.
Okay.
So I went to a couple competitions. I've been to some CrossFit competitions, not as an athlete, but just as a spectator. So I would think, wow, that'd be really cool. I need to do that. And I'd get fired up about working out and, getting to that level. And then I was just a poser because I never did it. I never followed through with it.
I see.
So
okay.
I
think that happens to people a lot. I think they get very inspired by the CrossFit Games, or some, if they watch something on.
And then just never follow through.
Yeah, and they leave there like amped. I mean, I feel that even when I go to those things, and you leave like all amped, and then what it comes down to is, if it's not a habit, the motivation, that like excitement's gonna wear off. Yeah. Real life is gonna come back, and you're left with what your habits are at that point.
And I think that's where that message of consistency is key.
Yeah.
Is so important, because now I figured that out, but it's taken my freaking 40.
Yeah.
And I finally understand that. And some days I do more than other days, so that more than nothing message is so important, and the challenges you put out are so important. Like, I did the nutrition challenge with Molly, and I learned a lot through that.
Wow, okay.
So just the challenges, they're simple, and it's geared to anyone, because you can scale up or down however you need to.
Yeah.
So the messaging you put out I think is what's helped me the most.
Okay, so what was it then? What was it that you were very sporadic? You didn't even really use your dumbbells that you had in the truck. You were pretty much, even though you were driving, still working out only at home because of the schedule and everything. Was it when you stopped working for someone else and started working for yourself that you were able to start doing more of the workouts on the road? Or what was the switch that flipped for that?
Yeah. Anytime I've had a big change in my life, I've gone through a period of being overwhelmed. So I have to focus. I'm trying to figure things out. And so then my nutrition fitness takes a sideline. And I think what really got me serious was I was an owner-operator for a little while. But remember I said at the beginning I didn't want to be that typical trucker who sat behind the wheel all day and never moved, never exercised, got super unhealthy. Yeah, I did that. So I woke up and I was like a lot heavier. And if you don't look in the mirror, you really just, you can ignore that. But then I started, I went to the VA for my blood work because
What branch of the military were you?
Air Force.
Okay.
So yeah, not the fitness branch of the military.
Still.
But yeah, so I went in for blood work and they're like, you're pre-diabetic. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And I've always overate. I've always eaten the wrong foods. I've always eaten too much. Food has been my addiction.
Like a comfort?
My whole life. It's always been like that.
Even when you were young?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I was in the Fat Boy program when I was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And the first time I ever ran, I joined the Air Force when I was 17. So the first time I ever ran was I ran 10 minutes a few months before I joined the Air Force when I was 17.
Just once?
Yeah, just once. Maybe
just want to make sure.
And I'm like, oh, that really sucked. Okay. But I was in the Air Force. I made it, you know.
Okay.
I passed the physical test and all that.
Okay.
But I've never been that athletic type.
Okay.
But now I completely forgot where I was. So,
You were
so
talking
the
about-
blood work came back, and I was pre-diabetic. And I knew it was because I was eating sugar. And then I never drank alcohol up until I lived in D.C. in 2018. And for some reason, I made really good money then. And so I'm like, oh, I got money to, you know, so I ate out all the time. And then I started having a drink or two with meals. And so then for the first time in my life, I started drinking alcohol. And then fast forward like 2 years, I was a truck driver. I would still drink, not when I was driving.
Of course.
Yeah, I was never an alcoholic, but I was still a food addict.
Okay.
So then fast forward, I was pre-diabetic. I'm like, yeah, I need to fix that. He's like, well, we're going to give you some prescriptions. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I can fix it because it's a lifestyle issue.
You knew that. That's so great that you knew that, because most people would just think, oh, well, this is my life now.
No, I knew, because I've read plenty of books on nutrition and healthy living. I knew what I should be doing. It's just I didn't put it into practice. So fast forward 6 or 8 months, I went back and... no, it was 6 months. I went back, and they're like, hey, congratulations, now you're a diabetic. Your A1C is 7.5. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got to fix that.
So when they said you were pre-diabetic, you kind of left saying, I got to fix it, but then
I didn't.
You didn't.
No.
And you went back, and I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just like, it's so common. For me personally, to make you feel like, you know, everybody has their struggles. For me, it's sleep. Like, I know I need to go to sleep earlier. I know how important it is and everything, but it's just, I'm such a night person, and that doesn't work when you have 3 little kids, you know, because you just don't get sleep. There's not an option to sleep later. So I totally get it. It's so hard to break those habits.
Yeah, that habit of nutrition. And it's always been what's held me back, is because when I overate, like I would go to a Mexican restaurant for lunch, and then I was supposed to go work out at 2. I'm like, I don't feel like it.
You're just tired and full.
I was too full to work out.
Yeah.
So then I didn't work out. And I've done that some as a truck driver. I would, because you drive 11 hours a day, and then you have a couple hours, you know, you're stopped getting fuel, loading, unloading. And at the end of the day, I was hungry because I was busy and didn't have time to eat. Then I'd eat too much. Well, then I definitely didn't feel like working out. And then I had to get up at 4 a.m. to start driving again.
That's so hard.
It was such a cycle. But so I went back. My A1C was 7.5.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I got to fix this. And then he's like, okay, you're going to, you know, get on a prescription. I'm like, okay, you can give it to me. I didn't take it. And I went back, and I started that between that period of then and when I went back, like 6 or 8 months later, I really started for the first time in my life, feeling sick. And it got really bad, like the classic diabetic signs of
What year was this? Like, where were we in your journey at this point?
2020, 2021.
Okay.
Beginning of 2021.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. But it got bad. Like, I started having really bad leg cramps. I noticed when I would drink at dinner a couple of drinks, I couldn't sleep. The constant urge to have to pee, which I know is a classic sign.
And it's also not ideal if you're a truck driver.
No, not at all. So what really woke me up was, I can't remember what it was when I was 7.5 A1C. I got the blood glucose sticks, and then when I was 14, when I went back and I was 14.1. Well, I haven't got to that part yet. So yeah, between that time of 7.5, I started feeling the effects of my choices, like how I was eating, and I didn't feel like working out because I was tired and I had to pee all the time, and I was getting leg cramps at night. I wasn't sleeping good, and so then I didn't want to work out. But I would push.
Did you change anything at all about your nutrition after the 7.5 visit?
No, I tried. I would for like a day or two.
What kind of things? I'm curious. Before we get to what happened, what was your diet like? Because I think everybody has a different idea of I wasn't eating good, like I was eating bad, and that means something different to everyone, I think. So give us an example, because I'm guessing that a lot of drivers have a similar experience where I can only imagine. I mean, I know when I go on a road trip, like all I want are munchies the whole day, and you end up eating at fast food restaurants or gas station restaurants or whatever's open when you actually roll into wherever you're going to, or just not eating, and then like you're saying, like eating a huge meal because you're so hungry, not drinking enough water. So give us, when it was still in your mind that you were eating bad, like an example of a day. What did that look
just
like?
Eating out. Even when I was home, I
Soda?
would eat out. Yeah. I didn't.
You weren't like pounding Mountain Dew or
soda.
anything like that?
It was a lot of sugar.
Energy drinks?
No.
Okay.
No. Did coffee.
That's got to be a truck driver thing, though. They've got to be big on the energy drinks.
And I never got into the energy drinks.
Okay.
But my drug of choice was, I did start drinking sugar.
Like
sodas,
what kind of stuff?
like
Sodas. Okay.
But I didn't, grab a liter of cola and down that.
Okay.
It was fountain drinks, or if I was at a restaurant, sweet tea.
Okay.
But it was more just eating out.
Okay.
Eating at restaurants, even when I was home. And it was also the portions, the huge portions. Because you go to a Mexican restaurant and you get a burrito, you got to eat the whole thing, right?
Right.
So I've never, okay, I'm just going to eat half of this and be done. I didn't do that. So it was mostly just eating out. It wasn't so much candy. It would be desserts, though.
Okay.
So I didn't grab stuff at a convenience store or truck stop, like candy stuff, but it was desserts at restaurants, lots of fried foods, pizza and burgers and fries. So I'd have fried potatoes at every meal.
I mean, you're like in almost like that southern area too, where there's a lot of options for tasty food.
Yeah. Well, tasty and unhealthy foods.
Of course,
yeah.
yes. A lot of butter, a lot of
there's not many
fried
salad bars.
everything. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was mostly that.
Okay.
And then pair that with a couple drinks.
Right.
So I didn't like beer, but I would do ciders or mixed drinks that had the sugary stuff in them, the cocktails. A couple of those each day.
Okay. Okay, so you get the 7.5, and you said you tried to make some changes to your nutrition. So what were you, when you heard that news and you were going to make a change, what did you try to do? I'm interested in that.
Get more consistent with street parking, like actually.
But like with your
out.
Food, what did you do? How did you try to change your food, or did you not yet?
I did an all or nothing approach.
Because that's why I wanted to ask you that, because most people, that's what they would do. They'd be like, oh, I'm never going to eat pizza again, and I'm only gonna drink water, and it's so drastic is where most people go to.
That's exactly what I did. And it's like, okay, well, I messed up already today, so I'll
Yes.
start tomorrow. And I would go and just binge that day. Be like,
very
okay, well, I'm
common.
going to start again tomorrow. And then you said, you're like, I know a comment that still sticks with me is, you just brush your teeth,
Yeah.
right? It's just something you do. It's just what you do. You brush
Right.
your teeth. So I then fast forward some, I started incorporating that into my mentality of, okay, it's what I do. I'm going to move my body today. It's just what I do. It's like brushing my teeth.
Right.
It's what I do.
You don't have to want to. You just do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that comment that you made, and I don't even remember if it was a podcast or
Neither
just
do
something
I.
you posted. But I remember, I'm like, well, that's logical. And so I don't know who said another comment that stuck with me is if you, I can't remember the example now, if you mess up and you're not like, well, I'm going to blow the rest of the money in my
Right.
bank account because I made this one purchase that was outside
Right.
my budget. So I'm just going to blow it all. And there were several examples of that's not what you do. You just start again and, oh, I messed up. Okay, cool. I'm going to start right now doing something different.
It's so interesting, and obviously there are people who struggle with money and doing weird things with money. But in general, I love the analogy of food or fitness and like budgeting money. But for some reason, people have a much easier time being less emotional about keeping a budget or how to spend your money, and it doesn't feel like this emotional thing. When it comes to food, people. It's so much harder for them because it's emotional and it's
I'm
different.
right there.
But it is really, if you just logically, it's the same thing, like you're saying. Or like one of the other examples is with what you're talking about. Like I would eat something bad for lunch and then I'd be like, oh, well, the day's ruined, so I might as well have something like that for dinner too. If you forget to brush your teeth on Monday, you don't wait till the next Monday to
Right.
start over again.
Well,
Or if you get to brush your teeth in the morning, you don't say, well, screw it, I got to start over. Like you'll still brush your teeth when you go to bed at night, Yeah. And it's so logical, and people have a really hard time with nutrition and fitness when they think they have a hard time thinking of
Right.
it.
Oh, well,
like
I've got to, okay, it's Monday. I'm going to start now. And man, I have done that so many times in my life. I can't even count the number of times I took before pictures. And okay, well, it's Sunday. I'm going to start Sunday. Well, I screwed up today, so I'll start Monday. Well, it's Friday. I'll start
Monday.
Oh my gosh. And I've done that my whole life. And what did it get me? It led me to being sedentary and ending up with diabetes.
Yeah. Okay, so you go back then, and now it's higher.
So, and I started having problems.
And you were feeling it finally.
I felt it. I couldn't work out because I didn't have energy. Like there's a couple times I did the workouts, the street parking workouts, and I literally got really dizzy and was worried. I'm like, oh, this isn't good, because I've never been sick in my life. I hadn't had health issues up until that point. So that was a new feeling for me. But I still knew that it was lifestyle. I knew that it was the choices I was making. So I go back to the VA for my blood work, and he's like, it says 14. Your A1C is 14. We're going to retest it right now. Because
he didn't even believe that was...
Yeah. And so then he's like, okay, it came back.
Did you tell them I'm not taking this medication that you gave me? Okay.
Yeah. And he came back, he's like, okay, the second set of blood work came back at 14.1. So, and then they're like, okay, we're going to put you on all these other drugs and all these other prescriptions. And I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention to this. Because at that point, when I went to take my DOT physical, I would not pass. You can't have an A1C of above.
Because it's dangerous for you to drive. You could get all dizzy when you're driving, right?
Yeah, and that never happened to me, thankfully. But I get why that's such a big deal for
sure.
Driving a commercial vehicle. So that I'm like, yeah, this has to change. And mind you, I went to the Las Vegas meetup.
Oh, that's right.
And of course, I went home pretty fired up. And
it's the same thing. It's like watching the competition.
Yeah.
You're around the energy and you're fired up for sure.
And so I didn't have that culture around me of it's just normal to eat these types of foods and eat these portions. It just wasn't normal. Same thing with exercise. So I went back to what was normal around me, even though I still knew that's not who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. I just got comfortable with being normal again. But yeah, when that 14.1 came out, I was like, okay, yeah, this has to get fixed. So I started, okay, I've got to hold myself accountable. And I figured out, okay, I've got to use the street parking community to do that. So I made some public posts about, okay, I'm going to post at least once a week of me working out. And at that point, I was full on under my own operating authority, which meant I was 100% of my revenue. I drove the truck. So that's a full-time job, right? I was still driving 10 hours a day. So, and then I had all the admin tasks. I booked my own loads. I did my own books. I had to learn accounting and finance to be able to do my own books. And then on top of that, I was like, okay, I want to grow my business. So I was working on, learning the government contracting world and how to bid and win government contracts and the freight market. And so I had 2 full-time jobs. So when I was done driving at the end of the day, I had to get on my computer and still work. And then when I was home, I would have to take a couple days off and file my state tax returns for highway use taxes in different states and set up customs stuff to get in and out of Canada. And I did all of that myself. So it was very long weeks, but I realized I've got to prioritize my health. And that's when it really, that change took an effect, because I took that mentality of it's just what I do.
Right.
So I started working out. I still wasn't consistent as far as hitting 5 workouts a week.
Okay.
But I stopped drinking altogether. And I noticed within a couple, 3 days, I was sleeping better. So then I had more energy to work out. And then I was making better food choices, not all the time, but more consistently. And that gave me more energy to work out. And I knew that being on the road, getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning, working out before wasn't an option.
Right.
So at the end of the day, when I stopped, I made sure I did something. And I started getting more consistent with that. And then posting once a week in the street parking community, hey, here's what I did. And it was for my own accountability. But then when I went back for blood work, I started feeling better. I had more energy. And I'm like, holy crap, this stuff works. Wow. But when I went back, my A1C was at 9. So in 6 months, I dropped it from 14.1 to a 9. So yeah, 9 is still bad.
Right, but I mean, that's a big drop.
I didn't take any medications, any pharmaceuticals. And I'm not saying that that's the right choice for everyone, but for me.
Why did you make that choice, just for people who might wonder?
Because I knew it was a lifestyle. And I knew I've always looked at unhealthy people and was like, yeah, you just need to eat right and exercise.
It sounds
but then I'm
simple.
such a freaking hypocrite because I'm not doing it.
Right.
But I'm like, I am not going to go down that road of just taking prescriptions the rest of my life and thinking that's normal.
Right.
Because I listened to I've read too many books, I've listened to too many people who are like you, who either have books or podcasts. They're experts in that field of fitness or nutrition, like actually practice what they preach. Yeah. To know that it's a lifestyle choice, and if I just change the lifestyle, I can see the benefits. So that's why I chose not to do the medication, because I didn't want to go down that road.
You started feeling better. You improved your nutrition some. I would say, honestly, and I know people hate it so much when we say this, because it's a really tough one. It sounds like it wasn't super tough for you, but the alcohol, I mean, it makes a big difference. It makes a really big difference. I don't drink at all, mostly because I'm always pregnant or breastfeeding. And I have in the past, but it's just not part of our lifestyle now. And Julian and I don't drink, and people get pretty bummed out about that, I think, because they want almost that like permission. But I do think, I mean, I think if we could get people to just stop drinking for the most part, except for when it's a special occasion, without changing much else, it would make a huge difference for people. And I think the sleep is a huge, I've learned so much about how alcohol can impact your sleep cycles and really mess you up. So I think that was a really good decision that you made. And then, so you improved your food, not 100% or anything like that. You were just trying to make better choices when you were at restaurants and stuff, or what were the changes that you made there?
Just better choices and eating less.
Okay.
But
so you were okay leaving some of the burrito at the restaurant? Or just not going to the...
I would take it with
for
me.
Later.
Yeah.
Portion it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That is, I mean, that's a good
it.
step.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's a better step than you trying to be like, I'm never going to go to the Mexican restaurant ever again. Because it's not going to like, eventually you might get there where you're only going there twice a year on special occasions for your favorite burrito. But like saying, if you're eating somewhere 3-4 times a week, saying I'm never going to go there now, it's not realistic. So, okay, when I go there, how can I make this better?
So, and one thing I did,
a great step.
I'm not saying I love Mexican food more than anything else, because that's not true. But I would go, and as soon as they tried to put the chips down, I was like, no thanks.
Oh, because as soon as you have one, it's over.
Yeah, you get full just on the fried tortillas. So refusing that just right off out
that's really smart. I mean, that's a good tip.
So that helped me, and just realizing what I was putting in my body, and really paying attention to how it affected me. But doing the blood glucose tests, the stick pricks, whatever they're called, that helped me realize what I was eating, how it affected me. So one night, I remember I particularly felt really bad. I was dizzy. I had some leg cramps. I had drank a couple drinks that evening, and I took the prick test, and it said error. So I knew that my blood glucose was over 600. But it had consistently been, 3s and 4s, 300, 400 range. I'm like, yeah, that's not good. So I knew what it should be. And this is after I realized this was before. Yeah, before I realized it was 14.1. I knew it's way too high, even in a fasted state, like first thing in the morning. But yeah, that was a wake-up call, seeing how high it had actually gotten.
Okay. And then, so had you started doing some of the workouts when you were actually on the road at this point? And where would you do that? Would you do it in like a hotel room? Would you do it just in a parking lot? Where were you finally busting out the dumbbells? Or did you still just only have dumbbells, or what did you have at this point?
So the dumbbells went away a long time ago.
Okay.
Because they were adjustable, but they
those can be kind of annoying.
They made
they're not ideal.
They were loud. It was hard to adjust them.
Okay.
And so that's probably why I never used it.
Yes, I can see that.
I think you did a sandbag challenge. Was that when? I think that's when it was.
We did sandbag summer. It was not last summer, but the summer before.
That's when I got my sandbag.
Okay.
And
I remember seeing you with your sandbag, actually.
Yes. So I fell in love with the sandbag, and that became my choice.
It's such a good choice for that lifestyle.
When I really started getting serious about, okay, I actually have to start working out, not just saying I'm going to, but actually doing it. I had the sandbag, I had the jump rope. And I would truck stops are pretty notorious for not being clean places. Truckers like to just pee wherever they're at. I'm not going to say I never did that, but I'm not going to lay in the grass behind my truck at a truck stop.
Right.
So, I normally would stop at the highway rest areas.
Okay.
Those are usually clean. There's picnic areas, tables. So I did a lot of workouts. I'd grab my sandbag, and I had rings. So sometimes, because I still don't to this day, look at the workout ahead of time.
Yeah, you said that you just open it up and whatever it is, you're just like, all right.
And if I didn't have the equipment for that, I'd go to a different workout and say, I can do that one. And I'd grab my sandbag and my dog, and there'd be a picnic table. I'm like, okay, I can use that for box jumps. And so I started doing it at rest stops, parks nearby a truck stop, whereas some of the other places. So I still stayed in hotels a lot.
Okay.
So if I would be out on the road for 2 or 3 weeks, you have to do a 34-hour reset. So basically a day and a half off. So I would spend a day or two wherever I was at a hotel. So the hotel gyms, I was pretty loyal to Hilton. So a lot of Hilton brand hotels always
Hilton
had
Garden
gyms.
Inn. That's the one they have good omelet stations at a lot of those.
They do.
For breakfast. I've also stayed at a lot of hotels. So
Yeah,
yes.
so the hotel gyms were very common.
They have nice ones there usually too.
Where else have I done? So using the truck, so
Okay.
being in flatbed world, I would be, it's called the catwalk. So between the cab and the trailer of the truck,
Okay.
there's a little step area
Right.
platform. So I'd unhook my airlines and use that for step ups or box jumps. So I got creative with that. And then I would use the rings to hang on the rails of the trailer so I could do inverted rows
That's so awesome.
on the trailer.
Did anybody ever come talk to you about it?
You just get a lot of looks because, like, you know.
Right.
So
That's really cool.
yeah.
I would definitely go talk to a trucker if I saw them doing that.
just a lot of looks because
Yeah,
it's
okay.
so odd to see that. So there's toll plazas in the Northeast, Ohio Turnpike, Jersey Turnpike, Pennsylvania. So when I ended up in those areas, they were great because I go to the back of the parking lot and use the curb for step ups, have my sandbag there for that. And then I remember one particular night, it was just, I'd had a rough day. My truck broke down. I got ripped off by the mechanic, like is typical in trucking. I mean, you're at their mercy. It's like, okay, well, what are
you're
you
on a
going to do, tow
schedule
your
and-
truck somewhere else? No.
Yeah.
So I get to the end of the day. It'd been a very frustrating day. It was downpouring rain. And I'm like, all right, well, not going to work out. And I started at that point actually eating food in the truck and not, having food prepared. Lots of sandwiches, tuna sandwiches, things that were healthy that I had with me. And I would prepare in the morning
That's
so that
so
I had
great.
no excuse at the end of the day.
You don't
I'm
want to
like,
waste it.
yeah. So I'm like, nope, still going to work out. Got to figure this out. So
Wow.
I was in the cab of the truck, and I realized I could do ground to overhead with my sandbag inside the truck.
Oh,
And
wow.
I
You could stand all the way up with it and
yeah,
everything.
and I could do deadlifts with the sandbag. There's a lot of things. I could do step-ups onto the bunk with either the sandbag or just without it, unweighted. So then I realized, oh, crap, I just figured out how not to ever have an excuse.
You figured out how to brush your teeth. You were just brushing your teeth at that point. You were just like, well,
I've got to make it work.
yeah.
And it was amazing. I remember one particular workout I did in the truck. It was a 10-minute workout. And I'm like, I am breathing hard. I'm sweating. And I'm inside the cab of the truck. And I was able to get that good of a workout in.
Right.
So that kind of was a light bulb moment for
Wow.
me. That, wow, there really is no excuses to not stay fit. So another place I would end up is in Virginia. They've got a really big truck stop in Virginia. And there's like a creek off to the side. And they, I would take the sandbag there. And at this point I had a ruck. So
Oh, okay.
remember, I don't know, was it a
Getting
Go Ruck
fancy.
challenge or something?
Yeah. Well, was it before or after Vegas? Because we had a lot of the.
It was after Vegas for sure.
We did last summer. We added the rucking program.
Okay, that might have been when. And I'm
Okay.
like, hold on, I can get a ruck because I still don't like running. But I get bored just walking, and I feel like I'm not doing much just
Enough.
walking.
Yeah, you want to make more of your time.
So I grabbed the ruck, and I had a 30-pound plate. And so then I started,
That's
I would
that's
throw
so
my
great.
ruck on, and my dog needed to walk anyway. He'd been
Right.
sitting in the truck for 12 hours. So I made it a point to go for a walk wherever I was with the ruck on, whether it be around a rest area, just walking around the parking lot, or this particular place in Virginia, I would walk over to the creek in a grassy area with my sandbag or ruck, and I would do the workout there, and then walk back carrying my ruck. And I didn't care what other people thought.
No.
You know, sometimes there was a spot, I've done this a few times, inside a truck stop, if it's a big truck stop, they'll have a driver lounge. And I don't care, you know, what people think. Or so I would go in with my sandbag and do the workout inside the driver's lounge.
You know what they really think? Even if they are trying to act like they don't think this, all those other truckers are thinking, damn it, I should be doing that too.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what you would have thought if you saw somebody working out and you weren't, and you were just
and
like,
it's like, oh, that's inspiring. And then as you're finishing, you're
right. You would have. That's what you would have been like. Gosh, dang it.
Yeah.
He's making it clear that we can all be doing this, and I'm not.
And I would do it for my own benefit. I
Right.
didn't
You weren't
care
trying to
what
show
other
off or
people
anything.
thought.
Yeah.
But and just that, okay, well, it's what I do. I'm going to go work out. Okay, how do I make this work? And that's why I stuck with street parking, is because I don't need a whole bunch of equipment. The barbell, I don't have to have a plyo box that's 24 inches tall.
Right.
I can just do whatever I have available. And for me, that made the big difference, because I was on the road constantly. I was away from home weeks at a time. I also got memberships at 2 different gyms at one point. So when I would stop somewhere, I would immediately pull up the map and say, there's a gym 2 miles away. And at this point, I had my one wheel. And that thing was
that's fun.
freaking awesome. I love that thing. But I trained my dog to run alongside me, and I would go to the gym. So if it was a mile and a half away, hop on the one wheel, go to the gym, get my workout in the gym, take a shower, and then come back. So
that's awesome.
That made a huge
that's like
difference.
a little social time for you too. When you're all by yourself with your dog.
Yeah.
So much on the road.
I'm still very much an introvert.
Just for an hour though, and then it's like go back to the truck.
Yeah.
Wow, I think that, isn't it crazy? I feel like so many people, myself included, have this light bulb moment of like, oh, I really can just exercise anywhere even if I don't have any equipment, like I can do something.
Right, just
and
squats, burpees, push-ups. God almighty.
I love your story so much, because I think there is such a big community of parents and that whole side of street parking is large. But in reality, the reason that I started street parking is because I traveled so much, and I had worked out so much in Hilton Garden Inn, hotel gyms, or when I had no equipment and I'm just like running up and down the stairs of hotels or at a park. That's the reason that street parking started. We didn't have kids when we started street parking. I didn't even know I was pregnant at the time when we started it. So what you're talking about is more what fueled this whole thing than even like the parent side of it and everything. So, but I feel like everybody does have that light bulb moment of like, oh man, like I really can. And then it just sounds like it just snowballed from there, where you were getting really creative and more comfortable and stopped caring what people think and would just do it even if you didn't feel like it. So that's awesome.
And that's the biggest thing for me, was just changing my mentality, having that paradigm shift of, okay, I really don't feel like it today, but it's what I do. It's who I am. And, I go back for blood work in June, and I fully expect to be non-diabetic, have my A1C at a healthy range.
So how long ago was the 9.1 or the 9?
Year,
and have you been back since then?
Yeah, the 14.1 was sometime in 2022.
Okay.
And then this past December, maybe November, December, I was back down to a 9.
Okay. And then in 6 months, you'll go again.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about it.
But I have my consistency has changed so much, where I actually feel confident that it's a sustainable lifestyle for me. It's just, I'm going to move. I'm going to work out. No matter where I'm at, what I'm doing, I'm going to move somehow almost every day. And then the food choices drastically improved. Part of it was there was some months I spent like over $1,000
Oh yeah, I bet.
eating out. And
of course.
so then, I went back to my budget. I'm like, well, this isn't meeting my financial goals.
Make it a financial thing.
So exactly.
And
that
not
was huge,
then it's less emotional.
Realizing how much I was spending on food. I'm like, this is insane. I'm a single it's just me. How am I spending this much on food? Oh yeah, that's right. I eat out every day. So incorporating the financial goals into it has helped me definitely make better and different decisions on what I'm eating.
That's great. Okay, so you're not. Let's get into it now. So you're not driving truck now. What happened and when did this happen?
So this is just water. I know it's an.
He said he doesn't drink alcohol, but he's got his red Solo cup in here.
Hey, they were provided here. So, yeah. So I was planning on 2023. I made some pretty big goals I made them last year, of what I wanted to accomplish in 2023. And one of the big things is, I'm 100% of the revenue for my company. How do I transition it where I'm not on the road as much? For one, for my own health. For two, to get my business where it's more sustainable. And I through the whole process of building my company, learning what it actually means to run a business, I enjoyed that process more than the driving. So I was looking at, I started praying about, okay, God, what is your will and what do you want me to do? How do I serve you and what does that look like? Because I gotten really big into listening to audiobooks, podcasts, especially I had so much time driving down the road. I would
listen to so many of those things.
I listened to so much. So I expanded my knowledge so much. And one of the books was on prayer and, how to pray and what scripture teaches about praying. And so I started doing that. And God was revealing.
What was the book called, in case people are wondering?
Experiencing God.
Okay.
And I can't remember the author. But
that's okay. They'll find it.
Yeah. So, and a lot of churches do whole studies on that. But I started getting more clear on what direction I needed to go. And then one Sunday morning, I was still in sweatpants. I'd just gotten up. I was on my computer doing work of some sort. And I'm like, oh, crap, I hadn't paid my tithes yet. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start committing to being, having open hands with my finances, not, giving. So that became a habit that I was building. And then, I paid my tithes. A minute later, my phone rings as the mechanic where I parked the truck. And he's like, hey, I just got a phone call. Your truck's on fire. You might want to get down there. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. And I showed up, and the fire department was still on the scene. They'd put the flames out. It was still smoldering. But it burnt to the ground. It warped the frame.
You were at home?
Yeah.
But your truck was parked? Okay.
Yeah. I had gotten home Friday afternoon, and this was on a Sunday morning. So it sat for a day and a half. Okay. And I'm asking, and it was a huge deal because there's a diesel spill. So then the fire investigator's like, well, you have to, are you the owner? I'm like, well, yeah, I can't pawn it off on anyone else. And he's like, okay, well, you have to contract with environmental restoration team before we can leave the scene. So someone has to come clean up the diesel. So then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to figure that out. So get that contract signed for someone to come out and start the remediation for the diesel spill. And then I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be working at the cafe in church making coffee, so I guess I'm going to go to church now. And I did, and I'm like, all right, I had a peace through the whole thing. I had no clue what would happen next, what to do next, because I was already contracted for a load with the actually the diving company that I used to work for. Okay. I had been moving some stuff for them. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get another truck. But over the next few days... When was this? This was in December. Yeah, not long ago. Yeah, last month. Okay. So over the next few days, it started becoming clear, okay, I prayed for more time at home. This is not what I meant, but I'm at home now. And I started realizing, I looked through my insurance paperwork and policies, and I'm like, okay, well, if I get this amount back from insurance, I'm still not going to have enough to buy another truck. And I refused to go into debt to buy another truck. They're astronomically expensive. And my equity was not, I mean, I spent $58,000 on one truck in fuel in 2022. My maintenance and repair costs were a higher percentage than what they should have been for an industry average. So I'm like, I'm not going to go into debt to buy another truck. So what's next? But I had such a peace about, okay, cool, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do next, but it's not going to be driving a truck. So
here
that's
we
where
are.
I'm at now. Yeah. But what's amazing to me is I had that financial and business acumen. Lots of Dave Ramsey podcasts, Dr. John Deloney on mental health.
Oh, Julian would love, I mean, he listens to all those.
Yeah, and I remember when I was at the Vegas meetup, I talked to Julian about EntreLeadership because he had mentioned it at one point. So I'm a huge fan of the principles Ramsey teaches.
Okay.
And I back years ago, I jumped on that bandwagon of the debt-free journey.
So you've been
I've been
doing a good job of,
yes,
other than the food
going
spending.
way over my, and not actually, when on months that I didn't pay attention to my budget, I didn't do well. So I've learned that you have to pay attention to
I mean, it's just like fitness and nutrition.
Right.
Like it's
so
all
easy
very
to
similar.
not pay attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so, the truck lighting on fire, it just reminds you, you're so much like me because one of the stories that I tell often is I was competing at the CrossFit Games, and I had just, my whole entire life was that, right? And I tore my ACL when we were winning everything. And it was in that moment where it was life forcing me to go do something else. Like, you've done this, it's been amazing, you've gained everything you're going to gain from it. And so that was when I stopped competing. That's when I stopped moving. And just a few months after that happened, I met Julian and everything. But if that would, I had to be taken out, and your truck had to burn to the ground to force you to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. But
yes.
I've learned the skills of, that business acumen. So now I have that skill set, and I can apply it to something else.
That's awesome.
The biggest thing that the light bulb moment since that happened, I'd gotten pretty serious about actually writing and following a budget. And I said, well, now I have no income. So I cut my budget to next to nothing until I figured everything out. And guess what came out was restaurant budget. That's gone. So last month I spent $150 on eating out.
Wow.
So compare that to most months that was $600-800 or more.
Most people spend that every couple of days.
Yeah, so and this month has been even better because I still haven't figured out a source of revenue. So I've learned how to eat at home, and I started doing some of the recipes like Molly's 30-minute chili.
Oh,
I can make that. And it was really good.
So tasty.
Now I'm learning how to cook for the first time in my life.
Wow, you're learning so much.
And I'm 40. I should
Look at
already
you
know how
growing
to
all.
cook. But
yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to cook that well either. One of the things that you mentioned in your email too that I wanted to make sure to hit on today was how fitness had helped you during times with mental health and staying out of all of that, or you see the value of it in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dr. John Deloney has really, a lot of things he says in his podcasts, and I've read one of his books. It's really clicked on how important just moving your body. And he has a similar message to what you have about, man, it doesn't have to be fancy. It just go move, go do something. But it does help my my mental fitness, if you want to call it that. And I've noticed that, like, when I was at my heaviest, I would go to the gym and just be exhausted walking in. Well, not walking in, that's an exaggeration.
During the warm-up.
I couldn't. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I can't lift hardly anything. And I didn't feel good throughout the workout. But then I started changing my eating habits. And yeah, not drinking alcohol was a huge part of that.
It is.
And I don't think I addressed that as clear as I should have, as far as you were talking about, you know, that's one thing members like to balk against.
They definitely
But I've never been a social drinker.
Yeah.
Like, I would go sit at the bar by myself. And, but yeah, just stopping and paying attention to how I slept on days I didn't drink was huge. But for the social aspect of it, go get a mocktail.
Yeah.
No one knows the difference. So
No.
I've gone out sometime and, you know, I go to a place that I frequent and they're like, usual? I'm like, nope, just give me a club soda with lime.
That's my favorite too.
And it actually tastes really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no one knows the difference. So if you're a social drinker, do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So I got sidelined there, but
That's okay. No,
yeah,
but that's
thought
a
I'd
a
point
really
that
tough
out.
one for people. Yeah, and I think you know, I can't imagine how big of a difference if we could just have every truck with a sandbag and a ruck in it and have people actually use them. What a
Yeah.
big difference that would make. Because you're alone, you're sitting, you're eating, you know, at these random restaurants and things like that, and there's just getting out. I mean, the cool thing is that when you were doing most of those workouts, you were outside and getting fresh air, and you know, I think that's one draw to driving a truck versus sitting in a cubicle somewhere is you're like out in the world, and that's great, but we got to take care of
yeah, but
yourself
most of
too.
that's spent in a truck.
Yes.
And most truck drivers, I'll say most, they don't leave the truck stop.
Wow.
Like, they get out of the truck stop, go walk through the parking lot, and then back to the truck. And I had never been like that. If I'm going to be out on the road, I'm going to be exploring. So I would never want to sit at the truck stop. I would leave and go somewhere away from the truck stop.
Right.
And that's I think a lot of truck drivers are missing the opportunities of exploring stuff. But I've
Yeah.
always been a nomad and love exploring. But yeah, and that's one thing I was actually going to hit up someone here on staff about branding my truck with the SP
that'd be so
stuff.
Cool.
And trying to get more truckers into a lifestyle of, hey, all you need, grab a sandbag, walk around.
You order
with
one from Amazon. Get it, you know, start out with a
get
cheap
a ruck,
one.
throw it on your
Yeah.
back. And yeah, so I had some plans of how to do that. And I'm still going to, now that I'm home and until I figure out
What comes
what's
next? Yeah.
fitness and health has to be, I have to find community. And that's one thing I love about street parking is that community aspect, but just staying engaged with that. And I think that's going to help me going forward, not only in the online community, but locally I've got to find, I'm going to start a rucking club, like a Go Ruck club. I've got to find people who want to do it. But I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get people on board with street parking. I'm like, all right, we're going to do the vault every week. You're all coming to my house.
That's
and
so
we're
cool.
gonna work out.
And
So-
you're like a self-proclaimed introvert.
I
And
am.
I feel like that, again, I feel parallel with you on that because I mean, obviously, I can't claim to be an introvert with what my life is, but if I have an activity to do with people, I'm much more happy and comfortable than if, like, I don't like to just sit around with people and like eat or drink or anything like that. I like if we're doing something, I'm super into it, but I'm not like just hey, let's go to someone's house for a barbecue and chat. Like, I'm not a chatter that way.
Oh, I'm the same way. I don't, but I don't think I'm as social as you either, because I would rather not be around people. So just, I'm definitely not going to go and just hang out with people. That's not going to happen. But if I have a purpose and there's structure behind why we're
and you're walking
meeting,
and you're doing stuff, yeah,
I'm cool with that.
That's really
I can
cool.
learn to love that.
That's really cool.
So I got to do that.
Well, I mean, your messages and this episode I think is so important because we were talking about it before, and again, we see a lot of the like our community has more women than men. We see a lot of parents and things like that, but street parking is for anybody who needs an answer to limited time, limited space, limited equipment, or people who don't prefer to go be around people at a gym, you know, and they care about their fitness. And I think this episode is so important, and having people that are in that lifestyle of travel or whatever, introverted, can listen to this episode and hear your story. I think and people who struggle with, even though they know they need to make change and they know what that change needs to be and they know exactly what to do, still struggling with it. I think hearing your story is going to be really important for them. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I appreciate, being here is awesome. And it's just, I can't overemphasize how much better you feel when you fuel yourself properly and when you exercise. And I'm living proof of that because I feel so much better now. It's not just, well, that's cool for the athletes. I get it for people who are into that. But if you're not into it, you have to get into it because it's such a different lifestyle to actually have energy throughout the day and to sleep good. And that's the biggest thing I've learned and that's what I think has motivated me so much to actually be more consistent now than I ever have been, is actually seeing and feeling the difference. It's just life-changing. So that's why you're so important.
Oh, thank you. All right, well, you have your workout to go do still, so good luck.
And the cold plunge with Julian.
Oh, double whammy.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, well, people are going to be excited to watch your workout.
Sounds good. I'm excited.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.